Hello everyone. In this video, we'll cover question 1, invoice to transaction, single row or cell copy and paste. The objective of this video is to learn how to create an invoice and then transfer the information of the invoice to another worksheet called transaction worksheet. So we have invoice worksheet and then we want to create the invoice worksheet, and after we are done, we want to transfer the information of the invoice worksheet to the transactions worksheet. To give you an example, most of the businesses buy and sell products and services, and when they are doing so, they basically provide some kind of receipt to their customers. These receipts are often known as the invoice. These invoice usually have information like the date of the purchase, the customer name, address, phone number, the invoice number, sold by which particular employee, unit price, description types, and amount information, and so on. And then let's, for example, we are selling 10 items of a particular product with a particular item. Then at that point of time, what we want to do is we want to make sure that once we provide this particular receipt to our customers, we want to shape this information to our transaction worksheet. So tomorrow when new customer comes in and when we delete this information, then what happens is we still have the information of our previous customers or of our previous sales to the customers in the transaction worksheet. So if we delete something from here, then still not everything is gone. So the first thing is for you to do in a project is of course to create an invoice worksheet and a transaction worksheet and make sure that you have information about similar to what I have in this particular worksheet. So bill date will basically imply the date that we have today. So instead of just typing the day, it is often important to type the function in itself. If I type today, then it will give me the date of the today. The customer name, if it is coming from a certain worksheet, make sure it is a drop down as well. The address and phone number, you may have to type it. Make sure the phone number is in a proper format, phone number format, so that somebody types any other number like 11 digits or 5 digits, for example, then it will show an error there. The invoice number, on the other hand, say that we start from 10 and it automatically keeps on increasing every time we clear the content. There is a macro called clear contents, and when I clear everything, what happens is it automatically increases from 10 to 11 or 10 to 12 or 10 to 15, for example, so that we don't have to rewrite the invoice number or remember what was the last invoice number. The sold by, on the other hand, it has to be a drop down. Remember how we create a drop down? You go to the data, you go to the data validation, and then basically create a list out of the list here, and then click OK. And then while you're clicking OK, make sure that you select your employees out from here. So if I am creating this, I already have a drop down here. I'm going to go ahead and create a drop down for my employees list sold by here. So I want my list here. My source information would be coming from the employees, and this is what I would do, and I click OK. So now instead of typing each of the employee, I have the employees information to be here. I already have one here, so I do not need the one that I just created at the bottom. The quantity, I need to type it. It is not coming from anywhere. The description type, the product description type, if you have a product worksheet, you need to make sure that those descriptions are coming from the product type so that you don't have to manually type it. So again, what can you do? You can go to the data and create a data validation, create a list, and then select where the data is, where the product description is coming from. This is my product description. Then I'll click OK. So this way I do not have to type which particular product that I am referring to here. And then unit price over here, as you see, when I change the product type, it automatically changed my unit price. The reason is I did a VLOOKUP here. So as you can see, a VLOOKUP, you already know how to do the VLOOKUP, and my VLOOKUP is coming from this unit price. And while I'm doing a VLOOKUP, I'm also using a function called isBlank. You remember, like we talked about this in our class as well. The isBlank function, what it does is it says that if, for example, we do not have any product over here. Let's assume that I do not have any product here, any product over here, product description over here. At that point of time, as you see, the unit price did not show an error because we have an is blank function. It basically shows that if this is blank, B15 is blank, then give nothing to me, give nothing over here. Otherwise, give me a VLOOKUP of whatever is in B15, and we put a VLOOKUP function there after that. So what it does is, if something is here, it gives us a VLOOKUP function. You already know how to create a VLOOKUP function, VLOOKUP of V15, and then it is coming from product A2 till B5. This is our range, and then as we go ahead, we want to make sure that we are bringing the unit price over here. So we basically is copying the unit price, which is from product type. It is basically 2 columns towards the right hand side. So that's why we have a 2 over here and false, meaning that we want the description type to be exactly the same in both the columns. This particular product type should be exactly meet the product type given over here. So this is how you basically create a VLOOKUP, but instead of just having a regular VLOOKUP, you use a if is blank function along with a VLOOKUP, and then you have a multiplication over here. Here as well, you say that if unit price is not unit price, but if quantity is 0, if there is no quantity at that point of time, give me nothing. So in that particular case, let's assume that there is no information in quantity. What happens is then the amount is, instead of giving any value over here, it gives us nothing over there. Otherwise it might give an error if you don't have is blank function there. So I basically am typing 20 units here. So when I type 20, I have the information. I have a formula that automatically multiplies my number over here and says that 20 times, actually it's not doing it. Let me go ahead and do it right now. 20 times, I think I deleted the formula. 20 times 10 is 100. So I have a formula here. So all of this, if possible, automate them or have a formula that use VLOOKUP or use drop down to bring the formula from some other worksheet. If you're manually typing it, you are not doing a favor to yourself. So that's the first step. Now, anything that comes over here, what I want to do is when I copy this, I want this information to go to this particular worksheet. So let's assume that I have this information. I already have a macro here. Let me go ahead and click on invoice to transaction, this macro, and see what happens. So as you see, my information, I did not have customer name, but this information, the rest of them came over here. And if I go back and do that again, that information will again come over here like this. So I have the information about each of my transaction over here. So if I go back to the invoice and clear the contents, I have a function called clear contents. And when I do this, what happens is it automatically deletes the major information from here. And then as you see, my invoice number went up from 10 to 11 automatically. I put that kind of code in my macros. And then however, over here, I still have my transactions. So my previous transactions that I saved is still here. So if a new customer comes in, it becomes easier for me to type using the clear content. I clear everything and I put my content over here and so on. Remember, like I did not use a is blank, and for that reason, I have an error here. So that's why is blank is so important. This is blank function should be used here as well. Now, what I can do is, just to show you, let's say is blank if our quantity is blank at that point of time. I do not want any information here. Otherwise, if it is not blank, then I want A15 and C15 to be there. There we go. That's why we use a is blank function. So now let's go ahead and create an invoice to transaction worksheet that allows us to copy invoice information, the information from here to transaction worksheet. But while doing so, we'll make things simple for us. As the question says, we are only copying a single row. If there are multiple transactions here, like if you have 2 transactions, then this particular video would not teach you about it. We are only looking at one row, copying one row from here to the transaction worksheet, and that is what we'll be learning here. So now let's go ahead and write our macros. the first thing before we write our macros is to make sure what we are copying. We need to make sure that in our transactions we name those things that we are copying. So for example here, in my transactions I want to copy bill date, customer name, invoice number, sold by, quantity, and product type. So these are some of the items that I want to copy from invoice. These items are here, bill date is here, and then I want to copy the customer name, invoice number. So all of these numbers, these headings are over here in invoice, and I want them to be copied here. And when I'm copying it, I also want to make sure that the information that is already here should not be replaced. So again, I need to make sure that I insert a new row in the transactions worksheet in row 2. In row 2, it should go down. A new row should be inserted, and so it should go down, and everything should be copied and pasted in row 2. It should be copied from invoice and pasted in the transactions row 2. So I go to my Visual Basic, and then I create a module. In the module, instead of naming the module as module 1, I've named it as invoice to transactions here. So this is where I write my code. I mean, of course you can name it as module 1, module 2, doesn't matter. But like I said, I renamed it myself. I went to the VBA project properties and renamed it. So I'll go over here and write my code. I'll say sub invoice to transaction or transactions, however you want it. And so now I write my code, rest of my code over here, and I say the first thing for me to do is to make sure that I insert a new row in this transaction worksheet. So when I copy and paste it, nothing is replaced. No information that is already there should be replaced. I'll say transaction dot select. There I want range A2. In range A2, that's where I want my information to be inserted. I can actually avoid range A2 and directly type rows 2. I could have done that as well. So if you do not want to type range A2 dot select, still your information should your code should work. So insert copy origin. If you remember, this is the code that allows us to insert a new row right or below. Okay, so I've inserted the new row with the help of this particular code. Now the first thing for me to do is to copy whatever information that I have in my invoice worksheet. So I'll go ahead and copy it. But while I'm copying it, I need to be very careful. I need to make sure that I copy the bill date first. As I see, the bill date is over here. Copy the bill date from B9 and then paste it over here in A2. That is what I would be doing here. So my first code would be worksheet. I need to name the worksheet and say invoice. From invoice, I need to select it and then paste it to, I need to make sure that I am selecting range B9. I'm selecting the bill date. If you go back, it is in B9. So it is in B9. And then I need to make sure that I copy this selection dot copy. That's the formula. And then I need to paste this. I need to come to the transactions worksheet and then paste it over here. So I'll say paste it in range A2. I copied it from B9 of the invoice and then I'm pasting it here. So the pasting code is in A2. Can you please paste in a spatial way? PASTE spatial XL paste value. So the reason I'm typing this particular code is to make sure that I'm pasting it in such a way that the heading isn't copied. So if I use another paste function, then the heading colors and those other, not just the heading, but the B9s, the B9 from here, if there is a yellow color in B9, that will be copied in A2 as well. I do not want those things to be copied. Then I'll type another code called application.copy mode equals to false. The reason I'm typing this is because when I'm copying something, for example, I'm copying something, and then see this line would remain there unless I type this code and say that application copy mode equals to false, meaning that do not keep selecting that particular cell that I copied and pasted just now. So when I type this particular bar that I've selected and this particular automated things going on here would vanish and would disappear. So I'm done with the first one. I can copy the same information and then paste it below here because I do not want to write my code again. So I can do the same thing here again and again. So now and go back here. This was my first code. I'm done with the first code. Now go to my the second thing I want to copy. The second thing I want to copy is the customer name here. So I can go over here and my customer name is in B10. So I copy from B10 and paste it in B3. I think it is, sorry, not B3, but B2. And I do the same thing for invoice number as well. I copy from D9 and paste it to C2. So I keep on doing all of those things. So here, all I have to do is change it from B9. So this time around, I'm copying B10 because it is related with the customer name, and then I'm pasting not in A2 but I'm pasting in B2, and this would be B2 special as well. And do the same thing here. Remember, like we copied and pasted, we wanted to copy and paste the invoice number, and which is in D9. So I do the D9, and then over here I want it to be pasted in C2 in the invoice worksheet. So C2 here. So and then now we'll copy the sold by, quantity, and product name from invoice, and then we paste them again. So this is how we keep on repeating the same thing again and again. So instead of showing you by typing each of the code, I just wanted to show you the actual code. So now what we do is we copy and paste the same formula from above and then just change the sale value. The remaining of the numbers that we need to copy and paste in the transaction is sold by, quantity, and product type. Sold by will be pasted in D2 and then quantity in E2 and F2. So we need to copy them from sold by is here, quantity is here, and so on. So we copy from each of them and then paste each of them separately in each of them here. So that's why like we write those codes separately. For example, for invoice number, we copy and paste from D9 and then paste it in C2. That's what we did earlier. Now we want the sold by information to be copied from D11 of the invoice and then paste it in D2. And then again quantity information A15 to E2 and so on. So as long as all the information haven't been copied and pasted, we keep on doing it, and then at the end we type the answer and then we are done. One quick thing, the information that I wanted to copy in the transaction worksheet was it all depends upon what I want, so you can change it accordingly as well. It does not always have to be exactly the same information, exactly the same amount of heading, but remember that all of these informations are coming from invoice, and if those information aren't in invoice, then you cannot copy it from any other worksheet here. So this is how we complete the invoice to transaction, the single row or cell value, not the multiple rows. And now, if you remember, our invoice always increased every time we cleared our contents. So what we want to do is we want to create a macros that clears our content. So when we have information here in quantity, description, unit price, amount, and so on, and then once we are done with that and we transfer the information to transactions and new customers comes in, we need to clear the content. We don't want to go and manually clear each of them. So we need a macro that allows us to clear everything, and once we clear it, the invoice number should go up from 11 to 12 and so on, so that we don't have to manually remember what was the last invoice number. So and then the thing is, what do we want to clear? Do we want to clear anything that has a formula? Of course not. We do not want to clear any particular cells that has the formula. So for that reason, please remove, please do not clear cells like C15 or D15. You can clear anything that has the drop down. It should not matter. Anything that has the numbers, it should not matter. But if you have VLOOKUP function or if function or basic multiplication function, please do not delete them. So here what I want to do is I want to keep my date as it is. I have a formula here, but then I can delete the customer name. I can delete the sold by because it is a drop down, and I can delete the drop down. I can delete the quantity. I can delete the description type. I do not want to delete unit price and amount because they have the formula. So in Visual Basic, I can create a new macro here called, let's name this as clear contents. I want my contents to be cleared, and so what I can do is I can basically select the exact cells that I want to delete, that I want to be deleted. I want B10 information in B10 to be deleted, B11 to be deleted, B12 to be deleted, A15 to be deleted, B15 to be deleted, B11 to be deleted. So I'll select all of them. I put all of them in one bracket. As you can see, I did not have them in a separate brackets or separate parentheses or separate quotation. These are all text, and I can put them in one quotation mark. And then I can say selection dot clear the contents. I want the contents to be cleared from there. So now it basically clears the contents from there. So I can go to clear contents, right click, and assign that macro. That is related with the clear contents. But then again, remember, we wanted the invoice number to go up by 1, and we haven't done that. So anytime we hit the clear content, D9 has to go up by +1. So over here in the same macro, what I want to do is I want to first select the invoice worksheet, and then once I select the invoice worksheet, I would say range D9. My value in range D9 is related to, this value is related to what my value already, what the value that I have, that I already have in D9 +1. So now when I do this, it automatically increases my existing D9 value by +1. If I want it to be increased by +2, I do +2. So from 10, it will go to 12 and 14 and so on if I do +2 here. So this is basically how we do the clear contents. And after the clear contents, if you want your cell, a particular cell to be selected, if I want my mouse and cursor to be in invoice A21, or if I want it to be transactions right here in A2, then I can do that as well. So depending upon what your preference is, you are saving an extra step there. So when if I say I want my worksheet to be in invoice dot my cursor to be in invoice dot select range A15, if I do this, then once I hit the select button, everything once I hit the clear contents button, then what it does is it clears everything. It goes up by 1, and then it automatically, like I mentioned, it will go back and rest in A15 of the invoice worksheet. So it will come over here and A15 will be selected. Otherwise, it might select any other transaction and any other worksheet, such as transaction worksheet or any other cell within the A15, which you do not want to do, because if you really know that A15 has to be selected because you're typing a new quantity in A15 directly, it basically cuts down one extra space that otherwise you would have done. So this is how we create invoice to transaction and clear contents. Thank you.